Harper Influence and HarperAudio present Resolute, How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds by Benjamin Hall. This is the author. For all of you who've been knocked down, know you have the strength to get back up, and that you will be stronger every time you do. And for all of you who help to lift up others, know that you make us all stronger. Never stop doing so. Introduction. November 2023. Przemysl Kronig train station. Przemysl, Poland, near the Poland-Ukraine border. Almost from the day they carried me out of the country, missing a leg, most of a foot, and part of a hand, I wanted to go back. Few people thought it was a good idea. Some tried to talk me out of it. The country was still at war. The capital was still the target of Russian cruise missiles. The village where I'd been injured no longer existed as a village, but only as the ruins of 1,000 cratered homes. And yet, in my mind, it was never a question of if, but when. I had to go back. And so, 614 days after a missile attack outside Kyiv nearly killed me, I did. A few months earlier, I received an invitation to travel to Kyiv and interview Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Mariinsky Palace, from where he'd been conducting the battle to save his country from the militarily superior Russian forces that invaded on February the 24th, 2022. There was great news value to the interview, but for me, there was something else. The war in Ukraine has been one of the deadliest for journalists to cover. More than 100 journalists or media workers have been the victims of violence in Ukraine since the 2022 invasion, and at least 18 have been killed, an astonishing number that includes my great friend and colleague Pierre Zakchevsky, a veteran Fox News cameraman, and Alexandra Kushinova, a 24-year-old Ukrainian journalist who served as our fixer, both killed in the same attack that crippled me. President Zelensky knew my story, and one of the reasons he invited me to return, I believe, was to demonstrate the resilience of journalists, who, like his country's courageous warriors and civilians, refused to be cowed by Russian aggression. In fact, journalists from all over the globe continue to pour into Ukraine, seeking the front lines, finding the story, doing their jobs. For me, there was a personal element as well. My escape from Ukraine after the bombing had been improbable, all but doomed to fail, yet I'd somehow made it out alive, and all the way back to my home in London, to my family. Returning to Ukraine was a chance to retake this most unlikely escape in reverse, to relive the many impossible events that had to happen for me to survive, only this time with a clearer head and a more functional body. A chance to appreciate and be thankful for all the twists of fate and acts of heroism that brought me home. It was important for me to confront anew everything that had happened rather than look away and leave it in the past. Like I said, I'm a journalist, and a journalist can't look away. There was more to my story that needed to be told. So it was that I arranged a meeting with a doctor from the military clinical hospital in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital. The brave Ukrainian doctor who, in between shifts as an armed sentry for the National Army, saved my life after the bombing. It was in that hospital in March 2022 that my team of rescuers, dispatched from abroad by Save Our Allies, found me in a bed, metal rods sticking out of my left thigh, a drain tube attached to my skull, a cigarette lighter-sized piece of shrapnel lodged in my throat, parts of my left eye missing, my right leg amputated at the knee, and deep burns across much of my body. The Ukrainian doctor was dead set against moving me, afraid that any passage on the country's gutted, bomb-shelled streets might dislodge the shrapnel in my throat and kill me. One of several ways that leaving the hospital might have cost me my life. Finally, he did agree to let me leave, patched up and hammered together just enough to make the trip feasible. And now, on my unlikely return to see him almost 2 years later, there he was again, waiting to greet me along with a handful of nurses who'd helped keep me alive. I did not recognize the doctor. I'd been close to death when we first met. But he recognized me. When he saw me, his eyes widened, and his face went white, and he began to cry.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?